Attention please. The content of this channel is okay for children ages 13 and up. As a fellow parent, what you allow your children to consume is still up to your discretion. And with that said, let's get back to our scheduled program. These are the Transformers Legacy Decepticons that were released from 2022 to the end of 2023. In a way, it's surreal to have all three of them being one released each year in a wave of legacy figures. And while I personally don't have a deep connection with the Insecticons themselves, to me they are a mainstay of the original G1 cast. If you have the means, you should collect them on that merit alone. I want to take the opportunity with this video to get to know the characters a little better and just talk about some of the observations I've made while covering my normal bases.
On the tropical island of Bali lies an ancient and mysterious expanse of watery jungle known as Demon Swamp, where a strange new form of robot now stalks the unwary traveler.
Food approaches.
The original Insecticons from the G1 Diaclone line all had opening chest compartments for a smaller figure meant to pilot the non-sentient mech. This signature yellow canopy is carried on through most all iterations of these figures. I would say most notably on Kickback, who seems to be more of a Voyager class styled figure than the other two offerings. I'm not sure if he's designed on purpose to seem like his chest cavity opens up as an homage to the classic G1 design, but I validated that I'm not the only person who thought his chest could open. Out of all the iterations of the Insecticon toys, these are the most faithful to the animation and the G1 figures. I think it probably would have been funny to add wheels on these newer figures as well, like the originals. The Insecticons have some of the most inconsistent writing from the G1 cartoon, which itself is like a collection of short stories and acted out like toy commercials more than a continuous telling of a story. They could replicate themselves, they could control the minds of other robots with cerebro shells.
We can make use of him. I've implanted a cerebro shell. It will compel him to obey only us.
They'll be discarded in the 1986 movie, and then Shrapnel will show up later in said movie after becoming one of the sweeps. And the Insecticons' entire roster will show up alongside the Combaticons in G1 Season 3 in the 5 Faces of Death. Are they the original Insecticons? Are they clones? We may never know. Outside of the animation in the UK Marvel Comics at least, there seems to be some daylight on the Insecticons' role in the Decepticons' ranks. Led by Lord Straxus, Shrapnel was an executive officer to Straxus, and they were also part of a plot to assassinate Emirate Zaron. That said, someone was always trying to kill that old robot, it seems. But the comics, especially UK comics, aren't really my wheelhouse. I'd eventually like to read some of those stories from the UK Marvel run. I'm sure it's way more pleasant than trying to watch G1 Transformers seasons all over again. Kickback, Shrapnel, and Bombshell are all deluxe class figures, which come in around 5.5 inches. The figures don't have Hasbro issued release numbers, but the Takara releases do. Kickback is TL-04, Shrapnel is TL-32, and Bombshell is TL-51. Going down the list, Kickback comes with 2 Energon blades, and his Tommy gun is called an electrothermic blast tube. His gun out of the trio is the only one with some nice purple paint apps. While an older figure of Kickback from 2012 also featured Energon blades, it struck me as a weird inclusion. The Energon blades can peg into his forearms, shoulders, and attach to his wings. An undocumented feature in his instructions are that they can be combined and plugged into a 5mm port near his legs to form an abdomen. The designers Mark Mayer and Takashi Kunihiro had planned to use this mold as a retool from its inception for Ransack, another Insecticon. Unfortunately, Shrapnel and Bombshell, while also retooled into other Insecticons, didn't have any kind of big plans or features hidden for them, so they kind of got what they got. Let's get into that. Shrapnel comes with a gamma ray detonator and his 2 back legs for insect mode double as blasters. I guess I never paid too much attention to these line names. I thought Legacy was just Legacy. I'm reading Legacy Evolution, which I also thought was a tagline they added to some Legacy figures. Had this capability called Evo Fusion. which I'm reading was this line's version of the combat system from Siege. Too long didn't read. TLDR, guns make bigger guns. Things plug into 5mm ports either for storage or as armor or grasshopper abdomens. My point is, his back legs and his gamma ray detonator can combine into a BFG, a feature I personally have never utilized until this video. Moving along to Bombshell, he comes with a twin ion impulse blaster and his back legs, just as Shrapnel's, you guessed it, double as guns, and they can attach to the sides of his pistol. Bombshell was a heavy retool of Shrapnel, pretty much from the waist up. He's brand new. Everything below the waist, they're identical, with some changes in paint. And that wraps up the figure specs for these three. Kickback, of course, seems to have the best offering out of the three for upgrade kits. It's super interesting to me how much more love this figure receives, as I was under the impression that Bombshell held some kind of rank over the other two since he was picked to be Cyclonus, and my reading also highlighted that Shrapnel was who I thought Bombshell to be via the comics. As usual, Go Better designed all of these and most likely stopped producing them, so it's just random sellers on eBay printing these kits now. Let's get into them really quick. Kickback has the most complete arm upgrade available, which redesigns his front insect feet in alt mode, forearm covers, and gap fillers. Shrapnel gets completely new fists. I gather the original hands would strip the silver paint from his gun, which is purple plastic, painted silver. Forearm gap covers, gap fillers for the back of the arms and legs. The leg fillers have a hinge mechanism that allows for the knee bend to be mainly unaffected. The forearm gap cover is pretty clever. It uses the empty space to hide a cosmetic feature, which, when you are transforming him into his alt mode, tapers off into the legs, rather than having the visual of the fists just being folded in from the rear of the insect mode. This is also why the new fists are included. Since Bombshell shares the same lower half as Shrapnel, he receives the same rear leg hinge filler mechanisms, and just some general gap fillers for the arms. And while not really an upgrade kit, you can swap the upper thighs from Shrapnel and Bombshell onto each other to make their colors more G1 accurate, as Bombshell didn't have any black on his upper thighs and Shrapnel was okay as he was, but it just works and it's free to do. I'm not that partial to the Insecticons in general. I do like a lot of the design choices that were made for these figures, and I'm more into the why. Out of all the bugs they could have picked, these are all culturally significant bugs in Japan, hence why they doubled down on the beetles. For deluxes, it feels like Kickback is more of a Voyager figure than the other two. The clear wings have really nice detail in them, and while none of their chest cavities open, they all have hinges designed into their molds to hint that their chest cavity could possibly open, or that maybe it was going to be something they included and didn't, or it's just really a nod to the original G1 figures. And again, I was not the only person that thought Kickback's chest would open up. They probably could have taken it a step further and added wheels to all of them. I mean, for what they are, they're great, but not without fault, and that brings us to our next section. Cost and value. For $25 a pop and $75 for a set of Insecticons, it's not a bad deal. These are the type of figures that probably would thrive in a 3-pack with the way that Hasbro handled a lot of previous waves before this hell of a run they had with Age of the Primes. Some people managed to get one figure or maybe two figures out of a trio, and then the missing figure never showed up or got canceled, leaving a set incomplete. Autobot Target Masters. And it just left a lot of frustrated buyers waiting out the releases to obtain a complete set of figures, only to make the earlier releases hard to get or just more expensive. Each one of these figures released damn near a year apart from each other. I'm not sure what frustrations other collectors ran into with the Insecticons. I didn't have much trouble obtaining these three. Kickback I actually got discounted from Big Bad Toy Store for having a damaged box in March of 2023. I purchased Shrapnel at the same time when I put my pre-order in for Bombshell, when he was announced on one of the Hasbro Pulse live streams. So I paid for them all in one go. Things I don't like. My primary problem with these figures is that for what Kickback is and setting the expectation for the other two, Shrapnel and Bombshell were severely underwhelming. If it weren't for the TF Wiki explaining Kickback's Energon blades, I honestly had no idea why the hell they were included. I immediately threw them in a box of things I had no plans on displaying. Literally pulling them out for this video alone and then back to the parts hell they belong in, they go. The alt mode from Shrapnel and Bombshell suffer from them essentially being the same toy. It's like along with the retooling, the disappointment also carried over as well as the legs. There's holes in the legs that are utilized by both Shrapnel and Bombshell in different ways during their transformation, along with some extra ones, because why not? Probably going to make something else with this mold. And for Shrapnel, they do what they need to, but Bombshells are annoying. Just how you get his arms to peg into the thigh and then like the little door on the right of the leg, and it just doesn't fit right. And this, again, it's really high tier nitpicking because Kickback was really the peak release out of this wave of Insecticons. And this is why this video has even taken this long for me to put out. I actually had it all cut out and ready to publish, and I just didn't like how overly negative I was. I can't stand when I'm watching someone else's video and it's just despair, Transformers are dead, the golden age is gone type shit. I watch the content because I'm excited about this hobby, you're excited about this hobby, and that's why you're watching this. And when people start to unexcite you about your hobby, it's like, well, that's your opinion, but you know, GFY, man. I love these stupid little robots and they make me happy. But I would be doing you a disservice as well saying that these are the shiznit. They're a weird bunch, and that's going to move us along to our final segment, which are my final thoughts. I've never owned the G1 Insecticons, but I have played with them as a kid. I originally didn't have the Insecticons on my radar, as I mentioned earlier in the video. They released pretty spread apart, and it wasn't until they finally announced Bombshell that I bit the bullet and ordered the other two figures. Given their shortcomings with me and any of my gripes, I think as soon as they were put on my shelf with the rest of the Decepticons, those criticisms really didn't feel all too important. Kickback's Energon blades don't really fit the vibe, so normally I don't have those displayed. And while I don't really find these the funnest of toys to play with, all of their articulation capabilities aside, my lot of figures are fairly stiff and teeter when just trying to stand them up. I will say this, however, in their defense. There really wasn't much to the G1 Insecticons, and the major differences between those is the modernization of having articulation versus not. They transform almost identically to those original 1980s Diaclone toys. The faux chest compartments is a nice little nod to the originals, and I think the lack of trying to do too much with these modern variations or versions of the Insecticons compared to their counterparts before them really works out in favor for them. As always, I'm overly thankful that I have the means to enjoy these figures and they're a part of my collection. I'd love to hear in the comments your experience with the Insecticons, if you agree or disagree with what I've said in this video. My intent was really not to bash the figures, and I'm not really a fan of content that does stuff like that. At the end of the day, these are not premium toys, and I think once you start nitpicking things about deluxe class figures, you need to remind yourself, this is what deluxe class figures are. And that brings us to the end of the video. If you enjoyed the content that you saw today and you would like to see more videos like this, please click the subscribe button. I'd love to hear your thoughts or feedback regarding these figures, possibly what I could have done better with the video, or just to say hi. And that's going to do it from me. See you next time. Peace out.